Hey, how's everyone doing? So my last video actually did really well. I know it only has like 550 views at the time I'm recording this, but for me, that's really awesome to see that there's actually people watching. That was very encouraging to me. But as I was making that Mountain Blade video, I realized that there was another video game franchise that was near and dear to my heart that is actually declining as well. So as you can tell from the title, that's the Total War series, so here we go. The Total War series is probably the most well-known RTS grand strategy game in the entire gaming industry. It had many hits like Shogun II Total War and the Warhammer games, but now the Total War series is declining in popularity and each game is receiving worse and worse reviews. So what happened? The first Total War game, called Shogun Total War, was created by a British development gaming company called the Creative Assembly. And during the 1990s, the Creative Assembly had worked with the EA and their sports division to produce many of the early FIFA games and many of the early Rugby World Cup games. They eventually came up with a new idea, which ended up being Shogun Total War. The thing that made Shogun Total War and the entire Total War series unique from other strategy games was the fact that it was not only a grand strategy game, where you oversaw most aspects of your government, economy, and military, but when you did battle other countries, you would be able to play in the battles in real time. This is something that is still unique about the current Total War games. Shogun was released in the summer of 2000 with very good reviews and decent sales. Shogun was initially supposed to be just a separate standalone game, but due to this success, the Creative Assembly got to work on another Total War game. For each of their subsequent releases, they were all set in different time periods, which made every game a little bit different and unique than the previous title. 2 years later, in the summer of 2002, Medieval Total War was released, this time with a bigger map, more factions to play, and more gameplay features like rebellions and ransom. Medieval built off the popularity of Shogun, and at one point it was the third best-selling PC game of 2002, only behind World of Warcraft and The Sims. Shout out to my video on The Sims, go check that out. Another 2 years later, Rome Total War was released, which is widely considered the best Total War game by fans and reviewers. It improved on everything from the previous games, and while I've never played the original Rome Total War, I have played the updated versions of it, and I can personally tell you that it's still a great game. Rome Total War was so good because of the depth that everything went into. For example, there were royal families, historical battles where you could repeat or change history, and spies and other agents, which brought a whole new aspect to diplomacy. Rome Total War put the Total War games on the map by receiving lots of critical acclaim. In fact, at E3, it was named the best strategy game of the year, and the PC Gamer has it ranked the 5th best PC game of all time. And IGN considers it one of the top 15 games of all time, period. Following the tremendous success of Rome Total War, Medieval 2 Total War was released in 2006, and although it didn't receive the acclaim of Rome Total War, it cannot be considered a disappointment by any means. Medieval 2, like the previous Total War games, kept improving on Total War, adding a new emphasis on religion, and even having the new world be playable, although this was only an expansion pack. Thanks, EA. 3 years later, in 2009, Empire Total War was released, and this one was a little more infamous with fans. Empire was very ambitious, mainly because it was the first game where there were multiple continents that you could play on. Both the New World and India were both playable in Empire. It was also the first Total War game where most of the battles were done by muskets and not melee weapons. On top of that, an entire new aspect of the game was added with naval battles, which made controlling the seas much more important. All of these things changed the game, literally and figuratively, and that's why it was so ambitious. So while the game got good reviews, most fans were upset with the horrible AI, which might even be worse than Halo's AI. Shout out to my video on Halo, go check that out. This is actually my personal favorite of the Total War series, simply because I find the era so interesting, but I will admit that it was very ambitious, and it could have been better executed. And it showed. The game released with many bugs and glitches, and the aforementioned poor AI didn't help either. Strangely, though, the Creative Assembly never made a huge update to fix the problems. They just left it alone, something that's almost unheard of. Thank God for the Darth mod and other modders for fixing the game, but there was still a sour taste left in our mouths. Napoleon Total War was released the following year, and many fans consider this to be what Empire was supposed to be. The AI was better, the glitches and bugs were limited, and the game was clean and fun. The only problem with Napoleon was the lack of gameplay. The entire map of the game was only limited to Europe and some parts of the Middle East. and in the base game there were only 5 factions you could play as. This made many fans upset because it felt like Napoleon was more of an expansion pack than a full-fledged release. While Napoleon and Empire both got good reviews, they were given mixed feelings by fans. But Total War came back strong with Shogun II. This game, which was released in 2011, it put Total War back on top of the strategy game market. It was named Best Strategy Game of the Year, and many fans were rejuvenated to see Total War solidify its place at the top of strategy games. Everything you wanted in a Total War game was in Shogun II, and this was great news for us Total War fans. It seems like they were finally getting back on track. And then in 2013 they released Rome 2, and it should have been a slam dunk. Rome Total War was a fan favorite, and after the release of Shogun 2, the Creative Assembly was at the height of their popularity. And then Rome 2 released. And it might have had the worst release I can remember for any game ever, except for No Man's Sky. Rome 2 had so many glitches and bugs it was almost unplayable. It didn't help that the servers also crashed all the time. Oh, and not to mention Day 1 DLC. Day 1 DLC. EA, you son of a bitch. And the most sickening thing to us Total War fans was the fact that there was no blood in the game, which is ironic, but whatever. Something that made the Total War game so realistic and cool was gone. And worst of all, the only way to get blood in the game was from motherfucking DLC. Jesus Christ. Unlike Empire, the Creative Assembly tried to fix the wounds of Rome 2, but it was too late. Many fans were already disgusted by Rome 2, and this time, not even the reviewers stuck around. Many giving the game an average review at best. This was a turning point. How would the Creative Assembly respond? They needed to regain the trust of their fans, and thankfully they were able to make Attila Total War. It's essentially the wet dream of medieval Total War. Diseases, a dark mood, animations that were brutally awesome. It had everything we wanted, and yes, it did have Day 1 DLC, but it was still a good game. Following Attila, the Creative Assembly then released 2 straight hits in Total War Warhammer and Total War Warhammer 2. Both of which were great selling games and received great reviews and were tremendously fun to play. However, the Warhammer games were based on an old board game, and many loyal fans wanted a return to the historical titles. So, here comes the downfall. After 2 straight Warhammer games, Total War fans wanted a return to the historical games, and what they got was Total War Arena, which launched in February of 2018. Total War Arena seemed like a great idea, a free multiplayer Total War game where players teamed up in groups of 10 and battled other teams. Each player controlled a certain amount of troops, and total chaos ensued. One of your friends could control the cavalry, and then you got the bowmen, and Johnny's got the swordsman, but then freaking Chad forgot to project the general. What the fuck, Chad? You dumbass bitch. Anyway, there was a ton of hype surrounding Total War Arena, but the game sucked. The main problem was the lack of stuff. There was only so many commanders to choose and only so many troop types and maps. Not to mention that every battle basically ended up the same way, with you trying to outflank the other opponent. And also, what was up with the soundtrack? Did anyone else not like the soundtrack, or was that just me? Because I thought it was horrible. Oh, and yeah, there was also no Steam page. The only way to get the game was to go through the website. That might be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. So now, come March 2019, Total War Arena servers will be shut down. But that's okay, we're gonna get a mobile game? Are you serious? A motherfucking mobile game. Yeah, this didn't sit well with fans, me included. But we finally are given another historical Total War game in Thrones of Britannia, and oh my god, is it trash. Not only is it basically Attila 2.0, it suffers from the same problem as Napoleon Total War, that being that the map size is only the Britannic Islands, so the factions are mostly the same. The Viking factions are similar to the other Viking factions, and the Wessex and the Welsh kingdoms are very similar to each other, with the same troop types and the same culture. I mean, there just isn't that much. And not to mention more DLC. So much motherfucking DLC. Now, the Total War series is on the brink of collapse, because the series stagnated when it shouldn't have and got too ambitious when it should have. And now other games have come and are taking the grand strategy and RTS markets by storm. Paradox games like Hearts of Iron and Europa Universalis are way more balanced and are more historical with more gameplay options. And RTS games like XCOM just do it better. Hopefully, Total War's next release in Three Kingdoms will revitalize the series, but I just don't know anymore. It just seems like the Creative Assembly lost their touch, and now they are like the Assassin's Creed or the Call of Duty of strategy games, which really sucks because the Total War games were a huge part of my childhood. I remember coming home on Sunday evenings after playing baseball and just playing Total War games until the sun went down, and then it was my bedtime. I hate bedtimes. It just doesn't seem like the Total War series can maintain that magic run they had during the 2000s and early 2010s. But what do you think? Are you excited for another Total War release, or are you already done with the Creative Assembly and the Total War series? Let me know in the comments below. And like always, have a great day.